Grant me your attention, and I will dismantle the illusion you've been calling weakness. Not through hollow motivation or inspirational platitudes, but by revealing what you've mistaken for personal limitation is actually a carefully constructed fiction. A collection of stories you've repeated until they calcified into what you believe is your identity. If you're prepared to endure the discomfort of seeing yourself clearly, if you're willing to let Nietzsche's philosophy cut through the comfortable lies you've been telling yourself, then something fundamental will crack open inside you. What emerges won't be an improved version of who you are now. It will be who you were before society convinced you to become smaller. Let's establish this clearly. Nietzsche didn't write for those seeking comfort. He didn't craft his philosophy for the emotionally fragile or the perpetually anxious. His words were forged for individuals ready to confront existence without flinching, those exhausted by self-deception, those who finally understood that no external salvation is coming and decided to stop waiting for rescue. If you've reached that threshold, if you're finished with fear, passivity, and the endless apologies that have rendered you invisible, then this represents your awakening, not a transformation, but a homecoming to the strength that was never absent, merely buried beneath layers of conditioning and the narcotic of comfort. So let's begin with a fundamental question. What constitutes genuine weakness? Most people imagine weakness as excessive emotional expression, physical frailty, or lack of self-discipline. But Nietzsche would challenge that understanding entirely. Weakness isn't emotional vulnerability, it's emotional servitude. Weakness isn't seeking permission, it's requiring permission. Weakness isn't delegating your validation to others who lack self-knowledge, it's building your entire sense of worth on their approval. If this redefinition of weakness is already shattering assumptions you've held about yourself, then you're ready to dive deeper into the psychological mechanisms that keep most people trapped in mediocrity. Subscribe to PSYPHORIA Zone now and hit that like button to support our mission of exposing the uncomfortable truths about human psychology that can radically transform how you understand power, authenticity, and personal sovereignty. Weakness is choosing harmony over honesty. Weakness is concealing your desires to avoid criticism. Weakness is labeling your procrastination as self-care, your cowardice as humility, and your insecurity as compassion. Weakness isn't the absence of power, it's the presence of self-betrayal. The brutal reality is this: our contemporary world is engineered to cultivate weakness. Your education system trained you for obedience. Your culture programmed you for conformity. Your media saturates you with helplessness disguised as awareness. Even those who claim to love you often profit from your compliance, your silence, your hesitation. They encourage these qualities not because they serve your growth, but because they keep you manageable, predictable, dependent, and ultimately forgettable. Nietzsche recognized this systematic domestication. He observed how society molds you into a tamed version of yourself. The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe, he wrote. This wasn't a call for physical resistance, but psychological sovereignty. The struggle to honor your instincts when the world demands you suppress them, to remain dangerous in a civilization that rewards docility. The first step in dissolving weakness is recognizing that you've been conditioned to mistake weakness for virtue. You've been taught that refusing is discourteous, that establishing boundaries is selfish, that prioritizing yourself is narcissistic. But Nietzsche inverts this completely. He argues that authentic strength, the kind that makes you magnetic, respected, and memorable, emerges from rejecting mass psychology, rejecting false security, rejecting the compulsive need for approval. So I ask you, who would you be without the desperate hunger for acceptance? Not hypothetically, but actually. Remove your filters. Stop editing yourself. If nobody expected you to be pleasant, agreeable, humble, or passive, who would you become? What would you express? What would you demand? What would you walk away from? Most people cannot answer because they've constructed their entire identity around reactions and feedback. They don't possess a self. They wear a mask, a persona sculpted for survival and social integration. Nietzsche despised this phenomenon. He saw it as the death of human vitality because the moment you stop being dangerous, the moment you begin filtering your truth to accommodate systems, you've already surrendered your power. But you sense this already, don't you? That quiet resentment, that simmering frustration, that exhaustion that sleep cannot cure, That's not burnout. That's the cost of weakness, the price of living in ways that silence your deeper impulses to maintain surface pleasantness. Here's what Nietzsche would tell you. You were not born to be soft. You were not born to tolerate everything. You were not born to capitulate every time someone expresses disapproval. You were born to embody something sharper, something primal, not chaotic, but unshakable, not reckless, but untouchable. The reason you feel weak is because you've denied that aspect of yourself for so long that you've begun believing it never existed. But it did. It does. And we're going to excavate it now. Let's examine your habits, because weakness lives in routine, in subtle daily rituals that gradually erode your willpower while convincing you everything is fine. Nietzsche said, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded by others." You wake up and immediately check your phone. Already you've lost, not because phones are inherently harmful, but because you didn't claim ownership of your day. You surrendered it before it began. You scroll, you compare, you envy, then you rationalize, telling yourself it's harmless. But every time you react before you create, you weaken the muscle of self-governance. You become emotionally flabby. You lose your edge. You lose command. Let's change that. Begin owning your mornings before engaging with any screen. Check your posture. Check your breathing. Remind yourself that you are not primarily a consumer. You are a creator, a builder, a strategist, and your mental energy is not available to algorithms the moment you open your eyes. Next, examine your speech. Weakness reveals itself in how you dilute yourself to make others comfortable, how you speak quietly to avoid seeming threatening, how you say, "I don't know," when you do know, how you apologize for things that require no apology. You're hemorrhaging power and others can sense it. That's why they don't listen to you. That's why they interrupt you. That's why they underestimate you. Nietzsche didn't whisper. He wrote with intensity and expected you to do the same. Not to be loud, but to be clear. Clarity is force. Clarity makes people pause and lean in. If your presence doesn't achieve that yet, you have work to do. Not because you're defective, but because you've been concealing yourself. Stop hiding. Own your perspectives. Express them cleanly. Don't explain them away. Let the silence after you speak carry weight. Most people fear silence because silence creates tension, and tension is how respect is earned. Now let's address emotion. You think strength means feeling nothing. That's incorrect. That's dysfunction. Nietzsche didn't teach emotional numbness. He taught emotional mastery. This means you can experience everything while still choosing your response. You don't react, you respond. When someone disrespects you, you don't explode or chase or defend. You simply observe. You wait. When you move, it's calculated, precise, surgical. That is strength. Weakness is emotion without awareness. Strength is emotion under conscious direction. Stop saying, "I'm just an emotional person." That's a lie. You're simply undisciplined. And discipline isn't coldness. It's precision. It's the difference between crying in breakdown and crying with purpose. The first makes you a victim. The second makes you human. Speaking of victims, Nietzsche despised the modern tendency to glorify suffering. He saw victimhood as contemporary slavery, not physical bondage, but psychological captivity through the need to blame, wait for rescue, and justify stagnation with trauma. He didn't deny pain, he rejected passivity. Here's what you do. Stop narrating your story like a tragedy. Stop reciting your traumas as identity. Stop weaponizing your pain for sympathy. Start transmuting it into steel. Because here's the truth. Nobody genuinely cares what happened to you. They care what you became despite it. If you can become something impenetrable, something refined, something quiet but unshakable, then your past becomes a forge and your scars become armor. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But here's the secret. Your why is not discovered, it's chosen. You don't wait for it, you decide it. You carve it into your days. The moment you do this, weakness begins dissolving. When you know your direction, distractions die, drama fades, doubt becomes noise, and weakness loses its grip. So decide now. Who do you serve? What do you build? What do you protect? What will you no longer tolerate? Make it concrete. Make it written. Make it non-negotiable. Because if you don't choose a purpose, the world will assign you one, and it will be weak, soft, designed to keep you obedient, broke, and forgettable. I want you to answer those questions right now in the comments below. Tell me what you will no longer tolerate in your life, what you're committed to building, and what you've decided to protect at all costs. Your declarations in the comments don't just help you crystallize your own transformation. They inspire others in our community who are on the same journey toward authentic strength and self-mastery. But that's not your destiny. Not anymore. Because by the time this is finished, you will no longer be the same person. Now we go deeper. We will confront your subconscious patterns. We will dismantle the habits that enslave you. And we will begin the final process of reintroducing you to yourself, the version that never needed fixing, only unleashing. You've made it this far, which means something significant. You're not like the others. Most people can't remain still when someone touches their weakness. They flinch. They click away. They seek another dopamine hit. They pretend they already knew this, but you're still here, which means something ancient and raw is awakening. Nietzsche didn't just write about power. He wrote about what makes people afraid of it. He understood that weakness isn't merely physical or mental, it's existential. It's rooted in the stories you've accepted, the definitions you've inherited, the silent agreements you made with fear before you even understood what fear was. One of the deepest roots of weakness is the terror of being alone. Let's examine that. You've spent your entire life trying to belong. School trained you to raise your hand for permission. Friends trained you to stay within the tribe. Family trained you to suppress what's inconvenient. Relationships trained you to be agreeable, non-threatening, soft-edged. Gradually, you became addicted to acceptance. Not love, but acceptance. The kind of dead, passive inclusion that requires you to shrink, silence, and shapeshift just to be tolerated. But Nietzsche would look you in the eye and say, "You must be willing to stand utterly alone if you are ever to know yourself." Because belonging has a price, and most people pay with their authenticity, their strength, their individuality. But not you. Not anymore. You're going to unlearn the addiction to belonging. You're going to become someone who doesn't beg for a seat at the table. You're going to build your own table. And if nobody joins you, excellent. More space, more clarity. That's the first upgrade. Solitude over submission. Now let's go deeper. Why do you procrastinate? Why do you sabotage yourself? Why do you delay the very things you know will elevate you? Most people think it's laziness. It's not. It's a hidden loyalty, a psychological contract you made long ago to stay small so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Somewhere in your past you learned that shining too brightly made people withdraw. You learned that power came with isolation, that honesty came with punishment, that ambition came with loneliness. So you adapted. You learned to dim yourself, to delay, to talk yourself out of your own momentum just to keep things safe. That's not laziness. That's survival. But it's time to break the contract because you're not here to be tolerated. You're here to be felt. And that requires intensity, decisiveness, the kind of clarity that makes average people uncomfortable. Nietzsche said, "The snake which cannot cast its skin must die." That's what weakness really is. The refusal to evolve because you fear who you might lose if you do. But now you're going to shed the skin. Not gently, not slowly. You're going to tear it off. The people pleaser, the second guesser, the overthinker, the emotional translator, gone. Let's get tactical. Start with your language. Every time you say "I don't know" when you do know, you reinforce uncertainty. Every time you say "maybe" when you mean no, you fracture your own integrity. Every time you apologize for existing, for interrupting, for needing anything, you chip away at your own spine. Speak clearly. Don't soften, don't qualify, don't filter. People will say you're rude. Let them. That's just a reflex from those who grew accustomed to you making yourself small, and you're finished with that. Next, your body. Weakness hides in posture, how you sit, how you move, how you breathe. Most people live like prey. Shoulders slumped, eyes down, breath shallow. You can read someone's story in their frame, but now you change yours. Stand like someone who knows they're being watched. Walk like someone who expects to be followed. Sit like someone who isn't asking for permission. Every room you enter, you dominate, not by force, but by presence. Presence comes from certainty, and certainty comes from alignment. Ask yourself, What do I believe in so deeply that I would walk away from anything that doesn't honor it? Write it down, carry it, live by it. Let it bleed into everything you do. Now let's eliminate something else: victimhood. Nietzsche despised the modern tendency to glorify suffering. He saw it as a trap. When you make your pain your personality, you become addicted to weakness. You become loyal to your struggle. You find identity in it. But here's the truth. Nobody cares what you survived. They care what you became because of it. And if all you became was bitter, anxious, fragile, then you let your story win. So rewrite it. Don't say I'm a trauma survivor. Say I'm a builder of resilience. Don't say I was abused. Say I became untouchable. Don't say I have anxiety. Say I master stillness. Words are spells. Speak power or stay silent. If this exploration of psychological sovereignty and authentic strength has awakened something primal within you, then you're ready to join a community dedicated to these deeper truths. Subscribe to PSYPHORIA Zone and hit that like button to support content that cuts through society's comfortable lies and reveals the raw mechanics of personal power. Click the notification bell to ensure you never miss our investigations into the philosophical foundations of strength and self-mastery. Most importantly, put this principle into practice right now. Rewrite one limiting story you've been telling about yourself in the comments below and share your new empowering narrative with others who understand that words truly are spells that shape reality. You've already known everything I've shared. Somewhere inside you, the real you, the grounded, clear, calm, dominant version, was listening to every word and recognizing it, remembering what strength feels like, what clarity feels like, what it feels like to move without apology, to protect your energy like a sovereign guards their territory, to walk away from conversations that diminish you, to say no with your chest, to say yes only to what sharpens you, to sit in silence and feel no need to fill it. That's not motivation, that's homecoming, you're back. But here's the reality. You can't unknow this. You can't return to being the version of yourself who made excuses, who delayed, who broke promises to himself, because now you know better. And when you know better, you either evolve or you lie. So choose. Become the person Nietzsche would respect, not the loudest, not the richest, not the most praised, but the most real. The one who looks in the mirror and sees no hesitation, only presence. This is your standard now. Guard it like your existence depends on it, because it does.